Hi there. Today I wanted to talk about another big picture thing, which is obviously an area of interest to me as it relates to trauma, and in this case, specifically structural dissociation. And what I wanted to introduce today is the idea that there is perhaps a parallel process going on between our collective denial of where structural dissociation is rooted and what causes it, and structural dissociation, or dissociative disorders in and of themselves. And so let me start with this paradox, that structural dissociation or dissociative identity disorder, other specified dissociative disorder, these conditions exist with a paradox. There's a paradox of knowing and not knowing, which is protective and rooted in survival, obviously. So this is one of the most compelling features actually of severe dissociation, that a person can in some sense know something and not know it at the very same time. And information may be available in one state and accessible, and unbelievable, minimized, or emotionally disconnected in another. This isn't conscious dishonesty or intentional denial or anything like that. This is really what it is to live with structural dissociation, where parts of you hold different pieces of information and also associated emotion and memory and perspective, etc. This is really a functional adaptation that allows someone to continue living when fully integrating parts of themselves isn't really tolerable or is legitimately unsafe, because parts are necessary to help get through things when things are not safe or are overwhelming and dangerous. So then, what happens if we look at society through a similar lens? Because these things are obviously interconnected. What if our collective response, for example, to childhood abuse also contains a kind of knowing and not knowing? So we aren't obviously diagnosing society with any kind of condition. That doesn't make any sense. However, there is a parallel process occurring between individual compartmentalization and collective or cultural denial, I would argue. Structural dissociation is functional avoidance. It can be understood as an organization of experience that develops in the context of overwhelming threats. So different aspects of experience become insufficiently integrated into memory and consciousness or awareness. And the person may need to simultaneously both recognize danger while maintaining attachment with and to a dangerous person, because they are necessary for survival. They may need to know what happened and function as though it didn't. So we need to continue living in the context of abuse. This is our only hope, right? To continue to build a life and wait for safety to arrive, or build safety if it's available to us. The person may need to remember and not remember at the same time. The person may love someone and fear them at the same time, may continue ordinary life while carrying extraordinary experiences outside of awareness. And this is why simply calling dissociation avoidance doesn't adequately capture the reality or the function behind what is going on. The avoidance has a purpose. It allows incompatible realities to coexist when integration would threaten functioning attachment or psychological survival, and physical survival, of course, too. So sometimes not fully knowing what you know is what allows you to keep on going. And knowing and not knowing, of course, exists on a spectrum. So survivors may experience varying degrees of amnesia, awareness, emotional disconnection from known events, uncertainty about whether something really happened, minimizing the severity of what happened, knowing facts without experiencing them as autobiographical. This is the not me experience that sometimes folks with structural dissociation express, and questioning their own perceptions or memory. It's very common. Someone might say, I know it happened, but it didn't happen to me, or it doesn't feel like it happened to me. I remember pieces, but then I convince myself it wasn't real or it wasn't that bad. I know what my parent did, but I still can't think of them as abusive. But contradiction isn't necessarily evidence that an experience is fabricated. It may be part of the overwhelming experience that has and how it's been organized for the person. So if we then zoom out and we look at society,